Okay, so the next topic under Module 5 Risk and Return is about the expected rate of return. Okay, so when we say expected rate of return, this is actually a percentage return expected to be earned by the investor during a set period of time that may be as yearly, quarterly, or monthly. So, in other words, when we say expected rate of return, this is the percentage by which the value of investment is expected to exceed its initial value after the uh, happening or occurrence of or passing of a period of time. So it is calculated by first we will estimate the probability of a full range of returns to an investment, and provided the probability is equal to 100%. So meaning to say here, the management should professionally assess and estimate the level of probability of the different outcomes of having the investment. Okay, so to understand better, let us have this example. So, for example, an investor is contemplating for making a risky investment which amounts to 100,000. So, in this type of investment, there are three levels or different types of probability. Okay, so the first probability is there is a 25% chance of receiving no return, 50% probability of receiving 10,000 return, and 25% chance of investment receiving 50% return. So here we have three different levels of probability, and the probability percentage is equal to 100%. Okay, so this is just the first step. So the next thing is we will calculate the projected outcome of these different probabilities. Okay, so based on the information, so the first probability, so no return, so 0. For the second probability, 10,000, 50% probability of occurrence, so that's 5,000 projection. And the third probability is 50,000 return, which is 25% chance. So the projection or the projected return will be 12,500. So all in all, our projected outcome based on these different levels of probabilities is equal to 17,500. So this figure will be used later to compute for our expected rate of return. Okay, so to continue, the investor, as what we have mentioned earlier, sums the projections based on what we have computed. So the expected rate of to arrive, I mean, to expected rate of return. So again, the sum of the projections that we have earlier for the three different levels of probability is 17,500. Okay, so we will use this to compute the expected rate of return. So here, to compute the expected rate of return, that is, okay, 17,500, the projection sum, divided by the amount of investment, which is 100,000. So therefore, our expected rate of return is 17.5%. So this is how you actually compute for the expected rate of return if we only are considering 1 year, okay, for this type of investment. So what if we would like to solve or determine for the expected rate of return which involves more than 1 year? Okay, so in this case, we will use the concept of simple rate of return. Okay, so however, in this case, we will use a different formula, okay, to solve for the simple rate of return to determine the rate of return for more than 1 year. Okay, so we have here this another formula aside from that, which we have discussed in the previous video. Okay, so here, a simple rate of return is typically expressed as a percentage of the investment's initial cost. So here, for example, an investment that grew from 100 to 110. Okay, so basically you can see there is an increase, okay, of 10. So this increase is equivalent to 10% rate of return. Okay, so to compute this one also, we will use this formula. Okay, another formula for simple rate of return. So we have here current value minus the initial value. So this, the difference of this will be divided by the product of initial value and 100. Okay, so this is normally our constant, which is 100%. Okay, so to understand better, let us use our example, okay, using the formula. So here, following the formula, so we have the current value that is 110 minus the initial value of the investment, which is 100. Okay, so divided by the initial value, which is 100, times 100. This is the fixed or constant variable. Okay, so if you're going to solve for this one, it will give us 10%. Okay, this is the simple rate of return. So again, this concept is helpful, especially if we will solve for the expected rate of return for more than 1 year. So we have here, okay, the example. So here in the table, so you can see there the year, the return, and the average rate provided. Okay, so this is for expected rate of return using historical data. Okay, so here, if you're only using some of the data, okay, out of the complete information provided, then when using probable rates of return, you'll need the additional data point of the expected probability also for each outcome. So let us go back with our table. If you could see here, the data given is just the year and the return. In terms of rate, there is no probability percentage that is being provided. However, for expected rate of return, if you could still remember, we need to have the probability rate. So that is why here, in the next examples that we will have later, that probability rate will be provided. Okay, so here we will also have to remember that the column for probability must add or sum up to 100%, just like in our first example. Okay, so again, this probability will be based on the investor's judgment or based on the projection of the experts. So here, what you're going to do with this probability rate, we will multiply this, okay, with your rate of return to get the expected rate of return, okay, after adding all of the outcomes. So to understand better this concept, let us take this example. Okay, so this scenario, we have here 5 scenarios. Okay, so the scenarios are actually taken from the table, but it doesn't mean that it should be chronological. So here, depending on the judgment of the management or based on the suggestion of the experts, so they will choose what data to get out of all the information being provided. So that's why it was labeled as scenario 1 to 5. Okay, so here for scenario 1, the simple rate of return is 14%. Okay, and so on. And then the probability rate is again provided based on the judgment of the management or on the advice of the expert. Okay, so what you're going to do here is to multiply this simple rate of return with the probability to get your outcome. Okay, so that's why for the first scenario, our simple rate of return is 14%, and its probability of occurrence is 30%. So if you are going to multiply that, so the outcome is 0.042 or 4.2%. Okay, so you also have to do this with the rest of the scenarios to get the outcome. And then finally, you're going to add all of this outcome to get your total outcome. Okay, so based on the illustration or example, the expected rate of return is 9.7%. Okay, so all you have to do is to multiply this by 100, okay, to get this rate. So to be clear again, the first example is used in a simple calculation, especially if it is just 1 year. Okay, and the second one, this example, is used when we want to project the expected rate of return for more than 1 year. Okay, so that is for the expected rate of return.